Hello friends, and welcome back to our FastAPI tutorial. This is video number 23 in our tutorial, where we are going to be talking about classes as dependencies. Now, this might be a little wonky. Over the weekend I installed a new operating system on my computer. I have moved away from Windows and I am playing with Pop! OS, if any of you are familiar with it. So some of I forgot to copy over the config for OBS. So we'll see. Hopefully it sounds good. Hopefully it, sounds good enough. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. You can see we've got our app up and running. We've got the app open in Chrome. So now let's just kind of refresh a little bit of our dependencies just in general. So we've got this here. Uh-oh, what did I do? Okay. We've got our dependencies here, and we've got our common parameters that we're using across multiple routes. Okay, and we were able to abstract that out. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to expand on that a little bit. See, the problem with using a dictionary, something like that, is that you're going to have difficulty with type checking and with IDE support and things like that, because dictionary can be a string and then different values, and for the keys can be a string and then the values can be a lot of different values and things like that. So we need something that's got a little bit more help, that we can help our IDE and things like that. Okay. Excuse me. So now the next thing that we need to think about is passing in something that's callable, and that's where a class is going to come into play. A function is callable, a class is callable, things like that. So let's just look at a class right now in Python. Let's create a cat class. We'll create our dunder init with name string, and we'll say self.name equals name. And then we'll say fluffy equals cat Mr. Fluffy. We can save. And nothing will happen. Okay, because we're not actually running anything. But what this does is this instantiates an instance of our class. If we were to go and examine this, we would see certain attributes of this class, the first one being the name, that you would have access to. Okay, and what we've done here is we've actually called this cat class when we instantiated this object right here. Okay, so that's kind of the idea of what we're going to do. We're going to convert our common query parameters over into a class. So first things first, whatever, I don't know. Fake items db equals item name foo, item name bar, item name baz, whatever we want to call it. And why is this yelling at me? Oh, duh. There we go. That's a little better. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to create class common query params, and then we're going to create a dunder init where we will pass in q is a string or none, skip is going to be an int set default to 0, and we will default this to none, and limit will be an int default value of 100. This is exactly what we had up here. Okay, we're going to say self.q equals q, self.skip equals skip, self.limit equals limit. Okay, now I don't know why black isn't running properly. Maybe it is and it's not. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I don't know. And this is a PEP8 issue. I don't know. Like I said, new system. I got to get everything set up properly. Now we're going to set up our app.get items, and we will say async def read items. And here's the fun part. We're going to say commons is going to be of type common query params. We've done something like this before. We did we did classes of items where we inherited from base model, things like that. This is just a little different in that we're instantiating our own object off of these input parameters here. Okay, and you'll see why we're doing that in just a second. And like we've seen before, we're going to say depends on common query parameters. Response, if I can spell, equals an empty dictionary. If commons.q, then response.update q is going to be commons.q. And then we're going to say items equals fake items db commons.skip through commons.skip plus commons.limit. So this is kind of like pagination that you would do in a database, or not in a database, in a REST API to only fetch certain specific items. Response.update items will be items, and we're going to return the response. Black, please do your thing. Hold on, let's see what's going on here. Settings, external tools. Black is running. I don't know why it's not. Oh, you know what? Let me edit this really quickly. Let's see. There should be advanced options somewhere. I mean, aside from this, duh. I don't know why it's not working on save. Okay, whatever. We'll figure it out some other time. Okay, return response. Now we go into here, we refresh our page, and we have our items here. We try it out. 0 to 100, we get all 3 items. If we were to start this at 1 to 100, we would get bar and baz. If we went 1 to 2, we would get bar and baz. 1 to 1 is just bar. 0 to 1 should be foo and bar. Oh no. That should be foo and bar. Okay? So that's kind of the idea. And what we've done here, let's kind of just take a few minutes and look at what's going on here. So this common query params is a class. When you create an instance of that class, you pass in your queue, your skip, and your limit parameters. These are then set on the instance in the dunder init. So what's going on in here is it is taking this common query params and it is instantiating an instance of that class and kind of spreading these out, if you will. That's one way to think about it. It's taking the parameters that you're setting in your initialization in your constructor, for those of you who are from more traditional object-oriented languages. So it takes the items that are in your constructor and it creates the query parameters. If we were to make this, let's just see what this is, item ID, and then if we made this item ID int, and we refresh our page here, well, you can see here, this is a path parameter. We can display commons.itemID, self.itemID equals item ID. And then we will print this. I'm just going to kind of show you what's going on here. We will try out a 1, 2, 3 for our integer, and you can see we get 1, 2, 3 for our item ID. Okay, so it's not just query parameters. It's pretty much anything that was in our our path definition before. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing, I mean, that's basic functionality. But now if we look at this, this is a little verbose. And part of what is great about FastAPI is it reduces the need for extra typing. Okay, so what we can do here, we can do this and just remove the type annotation, because what's happening here is we're immediately calling this. So this is saying that it is of type common query params. So you don't actually need to tell the type annotation there that it is a common query params type. Okay. Another way that you can do this is, instead of doing it like that, you can say common query params, and then you can just get rid of this one. This will do the exact same thing. Okay, if we refresh our page, we're going to see we no longer have the item ID because I've taken it out. Hello world is showing up right there. We hit execute. We get the query as hello world, and we get all of our items here. Okay, so that's kind of it for just incorporating dependencies as a class. You're going to see there's a lot of flexibility that you get in using dependencies in FastAPI, and the vast majority of cases you're going to be using them as a class. The introduction as a dictionary was just kind of like I said, an introduction. It wasn't really meant to be. I'm not going to say it's not meant to be used all the time, but you're 95% of the time you're going to be using class setup for dependencies. And as I say that, I'm thinking about an example for the next video where it is going to be a dictionary or a function. I don't know. I'm all over the place. Okay, so I think that's it for now. I'm going to try and keep this relatively short compared to some of my other videos. Let's reformat this one more time. Why is this yelling at me? Why do you hate me? Reformat the file. And now we're going to use black, and it's going to reformat it again. Yeah. My IDE does not like black. Okay. I don't know. There's got to be some way I can configure it, or I can configure the IDE or something like that. I don't know, but I don't really care about that right now. Okay, now I'm going to end the video. In the next one, we are going to talk about subdependencies, where we're going to, I kind of touched on that a little bit in the prior video, where you can have a dependency that depends on another dependency and things like that. You can see here we have that method set up there. So you'll see all of it in the next video. I will see you then.